got it, brother.
All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm Scott Patton, the Dean of Blogonomics and Podology. I've been teaching people how to podcast since 2005. My first podcast was in the spring of 2005. The word podcast showed up in the fall of 2004. I had spent the fall of 2004 being incredibly frustrated trying to figure out this amazing new technology called blogging. And I'll never forget it. It was like every article I read said blogging is so easy, and period. And everything after that they tried to explain how to blog, I did not get. It might as well have been in Japanese. But because of some very unfortunate events that happened to other people, I ended up needing to be able to talk for an hour about something in addition to blogging, because I actually figured out how to do it. And that turned out to be podcasting. So that's how I started my podcasting career. A little bit of history. I can't believe that it's 15 years ago. Absolutely incredible. And this podcast that you're listening to right now was the one I started 15 years ago. So of course, the cobbler's children have no shoes, so it got neglected for the last probably 14 years, 10 months. And I decided, you know what? I really enjoy talking to different people, hearing different points of view, particularly when it comes to marketing. If I can pick some people's brains and share their knowledge with the world, like, why not do that? So I'm presently producing close to 10. It's not quite 10. I'd have to sit down and actually count podcast episodes. Well, podcast episodes quite close to 10 a week. And that's on, I think, 6 different podcast shows. So it's podcasting is going nuts. It's going crazy. It's a great way to get your information out there, share your message. And one of the reasons is because we take time when we make our podcasts to dive a little bit deeper. If you're listening to talk radio, sports radio, any other type of like talk shows, you'll notice they have commercials every 10 minutes, and it breaks up the conversation, and then people don't get into the depth. And I think we are starving for in-depth discussions that are not people yelling at each other like we see on the news so much, of what's going, about different topics. So with that all said, I want to welcome Tyson to my show today. Tyson, I am so excited to have you. Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Scott. I'm doing wonderful.
Tyson James Lee. Let me just get that right out there. So I happen to be in Medellin, Colombia. There's a lockdown. You probably can hear some guy yelling in the background. Sorry about that. The Colombians are noisy. They love to have parties. Their climate is perfect. So everyone's window is open. And if they want to blast the music out at 2 a.m, full bore, everyone gets out of bed and dances. Nobody throws rocks at them. It's just the way it is. And Tyson, you are in Chicago, if I understand correctly.
Correct.
Cool. So one of the reasons I was excited about having you on, I want to get talking a little bit about what you do in the realm of internet marketing. But before we do that, one of the things that's really important to you is values. So it's not just, I'm going to make a website for you and good luck and enjoy your site. You actually have a lot of really strong values that I appreciate, I believe in, and everything else. And before we came on the air, we were talking a little bit about communication and empathy. And I wanted to jump into that part of our conversation first before we get to kind of you push this button here and you push that button there, and 5,000 people come to your website.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
so in today's society, why do you feel like we're not seeing anybody empathetic towards anybody else? Like, why is everybody just shouting and screaming and not listening and not taking the time to communicate?
a narrow perspective and a combination of fear. So anytime that we're triggered or upset or frustrated, it's typically due to a narrow perspective. And when we widen that perspective, we have more empathy and compassion and love. And let me just I can start by going into what we were talking about. So we have these two sides. We have the mask wearers and we have the people that are anti-mask. And so me personally, I don't enjoy wearing a mask. I'm anti-mask. But you have all these influencers and all these people trying to put all this data on either one side or the other. And instead of having empathy and compassion and understanding why the other side feels the way they do, right? Because it isn't actually, the mask is not the problem. It's the reasoning and it's the emotional attachment behind the mask and what people are trying to avoid, or what people are afraid of. And I've had these conversations with people. And so why it's so important to me is we're in a great time of change right now, and the world needs change. The United States needs change, and we have this voice with social media. And when you look at all the great change that has taken place over the course of human history, what comes to mind is the British Empire ruled 2/3 of the world. Every army tried to come together, countries tried to come together to take down the British Empire. Well, eventually one man, Gandhi, took down the British Empire, right? And it was because he operated from a place of power, and he operated from a place of understanding and compassion and empathy. And so if we really want to get people on our side, or we really want to bring the truth to the surface, the first thing is understanding why someone has the point of view that they do. Because people aren't just crazy. They're not just thinking this stuff because it's like, yeah, all right, well, today I'm going to be on the left side. Tomorrow I'm going to be on the right side. Here's the mask, everything. And so, yeah, it's pretty interesting. You still with me, Scott? Awesome.
Yeah, I'm still here. And the reason that Tyson asked is we tried to do this last week and they turned the power off in my building, and he was all by himself for 14 hours before he realized that I was gone. No, I'm just kidding. Just a couple minutes. And of course, one of the things I like about StreamYard, which is what we're using, is the fact that if something happened, it would still continue broadcasting. And so you could continue talking, or we could continue talking. But of course, the problem is if you forget to stop broadcasting, it will continue broadcasting a black screen when we both leave. So it's kind of an interesting situation. So where does integrity fit into all of this?
So, like a lot of people that learn lessons, I've learned through my own experiences. I'm a huge fan of the Hendricks Institute and Hendricks work, Gay and Katie Hendricks. And that's who I've kind of learned my principles, my moral compass, and integrity. And as a young man, I was having problems in my life, and I was struggling a lot. And I started to reflect on my entire life and all the biggest problems that I had created inside of my relationships, inside of business. And every single last time, broken integrity was at the forefront. And so what do I mean by keeping impeccable integrity? Well, when it comes to the communication inside of our own self, the communication that we have with ourselves, and the communication that we have with others, there are three main ways that we can break integrity. And there's a lot of them, but these are the three principal ones. So one, tell the truth, right? Tell the truth. And the second would be honor your commitments. Now, most people, if you walk up to them, will say, yeah, you should do what you say and you should tell the truth. Those resonate with people. The third one is the big one, and it's actually promoted the wrong way by society, and that is the untold truth. And we have become so sensitive and so afraid to offend other people, or to speak our truth, or to speak our actual opinion, that we keep this stuff bottled up inside. There's actually a book, Crucial Conversations. Not speaking out, keeping things inside, suppresses immunity by 35%. It suppresses your immune system. Yes, absolutely.
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Tons of research. So what happens is, like we have this saying in society, right? Well, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And by no means am I saying go out there and be mean. But so
there's enough people doing that without us having to add to that.
Yes. So let me give you an example. So let's say you start dating a girl, right? And you really like this girl, and everything is going really, really well. But she does a few little things that just kind of bug you. But you're like, every time it happens, you're like, man, she does so much that I like. Like, I'm just not going to say anything. I don't want to offend her, right? And then it persists. And then it persists for months and months. And then you guys get in your first fight. And everybody knows how that goes. That's where everything comes out, right? Well, you do this and you do that. Like, so these were things that should have been addressed. And my biggest fear in any relationship, whether it's a business relationship, a personal relationship, is the untold truth. Is people not being authentic and communicating with me. And what happens is, from an energetic standpoint, when you study the quantum physics of communication with others and communication with self, it impedes the flow of communication. So if communication is a steady stream through a hose, imagine sticking a rock or a pebble in a hose. Eventually, that flow is impeded, right? And it has to shift and change directions. Well, that's what happens when we break integrity inside of the communication. And, I could talk for hours on integrity, but these three main ones, and specifically the untold truth. So be empathetic, be compassionate, be humble. When expressing this, find the nice and kind way to share this stuff with people. But it is so important that we actually come across with authenticity. So now, 35 next month, being in a relationship, a very amazing, successful relationship, we talk about everything. Like, we don't hold anything back. And there are very little problems because of it. So in business, if you're working with a client and this client is exhibiting behavior that isn't going to support him in business, you don't want to offend him, so you decide not to do it. Who does that really end up hurting? That ends up hurting the client in the long run, right? It ends up hurting the other person. So that's a little bit on integrity, and that's inside communication with ourselves and with others. And we do this to ourselves, Scott. People lie to themselves all the time. We convince ourselves of these stories that give things okay. Well, I'll go to the gym tomorrow. I'll get my stuff together tomorrow. And that is not the authentic truth. And that breaks integrity, and that creates internal turmoil. And it is that actually suppresses the immune system. It's pretty insane. It's pretty remarkable that that's the case.
So what you're saying is that we have things that we want to say, but we don't say them. Of course, we've been trained not to, right?
Yep.
Don't talk to your sister like that, or we from a little child, we've got these, keep your mouth shut and all these things going on. As you said, when we keep it in, that's now 50 years later or 80 years later, you're having a heart attack because you've been holding so much stuff in for so long. But the question then is, how do you communicate that with somebody in a way that's not that improves the relationship, doesn't destroy the relationship? And sometimes that can be a difficult scenario, right?
That's a great question. And so my answer to that would be to communicate inarguably. So
inarguably, I love that word.
So I could sit here and be like, people want to be heard, understood, and valued. That's what people want. They want to be a value and a contributing factor to society. They want to be understood, and they want to feel heard. So these three things are very important. So I could come to you and be like, man, Scott, you never listen, right? Or I could come, and now you could argue that, right? You can be like, well, no, I do listen. Or you go to somebody, oh, you ruined my life. Hey, Scott, right now I notice I feel unheard and misunderstood. You cannot argue that. I'm allowed to feel unheard and misunderstood. People project out instead of reflecting inside. So you're dating a girl and she's over in the corner talking to another guy. I noticed I got scared when I saw you talking to the guy in the corner. I noticed fear come up for me when you started talking to the guy instead of, what are you doing talking to that guy? Like, were you cheating on me? It's just, and so communicating inarguably, and obviously communicating with empathy and compassion and humility, not coming off like a know-it-all or anything, but using what you're experiencing inside of you to communicate that. And that way you're actually coming from a place within instead of projecting outward.
Beautiful. And the communication is so important, because if you don't do that, well, I can give you a really good example. I started my podcast world. It was a podcast hosting platform because I was really upset with another hosting platform that wasn't working. And a friend of mine said, you know what, Scott, you should just make your own. I'm tired of listening to you every 3 months complain. Why don't you make your own? And of course, this is like 10 years ago. And I'm like, are you kidding? All I've ever heard are horror stories about programmers. And he says, I've been working with my programmer for like 5 years now. He's done all my sites, blah, 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 blah. Like, let's just get him on board and he can do it for you. And I says, okay. So we're 60% done. And guess which two people have a fight? Not me.
The friend who introduced you and the programmer.
They hate each other now.
Oh,
so I'm like, you guys are having a divorce. I just want my site finished. And I don't know how this is going to work out, right? But why did they have a problem? They had a problem because neither of them were talking this untold truth that you're talking about to each other. And it's so obvious when I look back at it now. It's like, because I'd talk to both of them, right? I'm trying to like get them both not yelling and screaming long enough to get my site done. I'm not trying to save their marriage by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm realizing they're both telling totally different stories. And they're not telling each other any of those stories. And it was just like, oh. So, yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. So what are some ways that we can, I would say gently, I have this untold truth. It's eating away at me, and I don't want to blow up at you, but I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to communicate this with you. Now, I think you gave us one clue when you were talking about me taking responsibility and ownership of my feelings. It's not you're a jerk. I really feel, intimidated when we talk. And all of a sudden, so because you're a jerk is really attacking. Defenses are going to come up. I'm not a jerk. And you're going to throw your beer at me. Right. Whereas, but here's the problem, right? Like, how do I know what I'm actually feeling?
Well, a lot of people don't. And that really comes with practice. And, for me personally, I get present and focus on body sensations. So it's been shown that like fears in the stomach, sadness is, behind the eyes and can sometimes be your jaw, angers the neck. And so when I tap in, because a lot of times we're told as young men in this country to buck up, don't cry, get it together. I mean, we're taught this from a very young age. And so, as somebody who has helped a lot of people coach, or coached a lot of people through this, it's a learned behavior. It's really a learned practice to feeling your emotions. And so an emotion is energy in motion, right? And so it's actually energy in motion that gets to be expressed outwardly through the body, through sound and movement. So I am very self-expressive. So sometimes if I'm angry, I'll yell in the shower. I'll get it out, whatever I have to do in a non-violent, right, very non-destructive way. But a feeling is something that you go into your head about. And so most people, what will happen is they'll have a feeling and then they'll immediately start to intellectualize it, and they'll try to solve what they're feeling in their head. And that creates suppression, that creates physical harm in the body. And what we want to do is we want to feel it in our body, get present, shut off our intellect. Our intellect is a great tool, but Scott, 90% of us is from the neck down. Like 90% of us is from the neck down. And so I get present like that. But to come back to your question about, well, how do people do this? At first, it's not going to be easy. You probably have a lot of fear. And if we look back through your life, probably a lot of us when we were kids did speak our mind, and we were told, to shut it down. Like we would speak our mind or say something, and we were told, you don't ever say that again. Right. And so we have these embedded things from our past, and it creates trauma. And now we are immediately triggered when we have to say something. And then we tell ourselves a story about, no, I can't say that. That person won't like me. I'm trying to save the relationship. But the truth is if you do not speak it, it will eventually create bigger problems in the relationship. So there is no like, oh yeah, you can do this and it'll be easy. Learn to communicate with humility and kindness and patience. Be soft. Don't be aggressive. Try to understand and hear where somebody is coming from, and then express inwardly. And you will have to overcome some fear. But what is amazing is what you will find out is that you'll have some of these a book that I could recommend would be Crucial Conversations. It's amazing. One of the best books on communications that I've ever read. So Crucial Conversations would help, and it actually goes into strategies and techniques that you can use to communicate like this. But what will happen eventually is you'll have these conversations enough, and it will actually significantly improve the quality of the relationships that you have. And then you'll have new evidence that says, no, this is important. So it was tough for me at first, but now it's tough not to speak my mind.
Right.
And when I get in a relationship, I say, this is what integrity means to me. And my biggest fear is the untold truth. If you feel a certain way about something that's going on, please come to me about it. So I also open that up for people.
That's really cool. That's really cool, and it's crucial as well. I recall when I was first being told, I was, what are you feeling, Scott? What do you feel? Like, what do you mean? What am I feeling? Right. And then I realized, like you said, it's kind of in your body. And because I'm thinking, well, what shade of between happiness and sadness are they talking about, or anger, or all these things? And then it would be like, well, actually, I've got a sore and my back is sore. Oh, so you're not feeling supported. I go, what?
Yep.
And now it's like you said, you have to learn it. It's because we were taught a certain thing, and now we need to learn another thing, which is how to communicate how we're feeling, what's really going on with us. Oftentimes I look at people and I say, they have no clue what's really going on with them in their lives, right?
Yeah, I was working with a young woman about a year ago, and I remember our first conversation. And she was like, I'm like, well, what are you feeling? Like, talk to me about how that makes you feel. She's like, oh, I don't have emotions. She said, she's like, oh, I don't really have emotions. And I'm like, wow. So it took, a year of working together for her to start unlodging that and becoming aware. So you can do it. But it's, so when we have a thought or a feeling, we immediately go into the past to try to solve it or the future. And the only way that we can move through it is in the present moment. And so we get present with our breath. We focus on the body sensations and what will happen. So people spend their whole life trying to avoid certain feelings, and it makes these feelings worse. Here's the cool part, and this is the truth, and this works 100% of the time. If you choose to sit with and allow yourself to experience the fear, the sadness, the anger that you are dealing with, it will pass. It will pass, but you have to allow yourself to just be with it.
Right. Very cool. All right. So why do you think integrity seems to be non-existent? Like in our space, the internet, online space, internet marketing, selling stuff online, it just seems like integrity is a non-issue. And one example of that I just found out a few weeks ago was there's a company that advertises on Facebook, and Facebook allows the advertising. But if you look at the comments on their ads, it's like, I bought this, and 3 months later, I still haven't received it. Or, so I mean, basically, and of course, they're selling it. It's so cheap that nobody, everyone's like, oh yeah, I'll get this, $50 for a $500 thing on Amazon. And of course, the reason they're selling them so cheap is they're not shipping them. And I just think, wow, like, does Facebook not read the comments? I know they do, because I have friends whose comments get deleted. Has no one complained about these people? I know they have, because they're right there in the ad. What's going on?
I think and it's also the same way with all the commentary, and people will say things, say whatever they want. I think people feel a certain level of protection by being online. They're not physically in somebody's space, and obviously when you're physically in somebody's space, there gets to be more accountability. I think that's one of the aspects, but I think the other aspect is that people, I believe people have the best intentions and they're trying to do the best they can, but they're trying to create an irresistible offer, and it's basically it's just a lack of personal integrity. They're willing to break that integrity to make the money. And it's even with the overhype, overpromise. Like I saw, we do a lot of business in the Amazon space, and I saw an ad where this guy was saying, yeah, like you buy this for $1.85 and it sells for $20 on Amazon. And he didn't put the exact number, but then he's like, and then you can do the math, and it's like question mark, question mark. Well, I know because I've done for you, built Amazon stores that, on a drop shipping model, your percent's going to be anywhere from 12 to 18%. And on FBA, it's going to be, somewhere between, 15 and 30, upwards of 40. And so they're making it sound like, yeah, like all of that's profit, but we know that that isn't the case. And so, I wish I knew, but it really, people won't have integrity in their own life. Then they get, and the way we do one thing is the way we do all things. They get into business, they start operating the same way. But I really feel like people feel protected online. Like they can say or do what they want and there will not be repercussions like there would be in person. But what's happening is it creates lots of internal guilt. People end up resenting who they are. They don't like themselves. It starts to spiral out of control. They, make a lot of money and they spend it all. And, it's, so my mission and purpose is, because of all the energetics that I kind of shared with you about integrity, I had deep inspiration. Now I've built a lot of sales teams for coaches, consultants. My business partner, Alex, has built some of the most beautiful websites I've ever seen, him and his team. So we came together to create a marketing company built on integrity. And so I believe that if we keep impeccable integrity, we under promise and we get people killer results, but we're also really honest with people, right? Like, yeah, like it's probably going to be difficult, to do 6 figures in 6 months. This is what we think is possible. And we always under promise. And so they're always happy with the outcome. And I believe that by doing that, and keeping our own personal integrity with ourselves and in business, it will only be a matter of time before the cream rises to the top, until the companies that are operating with integrity will be out there dominating the marketplace. And once that happens, you got to remember too, the online space is very new. Like it's, really like 15 years old. Like it is not old. And so anybody can get online and open up a business. I have a buddy who wrote a book called 5-Minute Business. Anybody can start a business, right? There's no credentials, no school, no anything. The coaching industry is unregulated. Anybody can become a coach. And so it was a brand new space. And so it started to get flooded. And then, like in any profession or anything, there's the good and the bad. But all these other people that don't have integrity found out that they could build a business and they could make more money than they had ever made, and promised all these people. When companies start to come up with impeccable integrity, I believe the rest will take care of itself, and it will snuff them out. So I believe in, even the next decade, in 10 years, we'll have real established online companies where people really do trust and value the brand. And once that happens, once there is options like that, people are going to hear about that and go to those options.
I agree. I think we're seeing that more and more as people, they're just getting sick and tired of the BS, and they want to get what they say they're going to get, and it's really it's separating the wheat from the shaft, really.
And the people that are breaking integrity are hurting it for those who aren't, because any ad you go to for a service-based business or a coaching program or something offering, these insane results, people are like, oh, it's a scam. Oh, it's a scam. Oh, it's a scam. Well, I do sales for an online company for a living, and I would say that 75% of the people I talk to have had a bad experience buying online. And so there is more people having a bad experience than a good experience. Well, what happens when you're great at what you do and people have a good experience? Well, you basically build a business off referrals. Like I ran a coaching business, coached over 500 people in 4 years, and that was primarily done on referrals. And so when you're great at what you do and you get out there, people will talk about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we're getting kind of near the end of our time together, Tyson. This has been fascinating. Tell us a little bit about your company, Elevated Empires.
Yeah, so I told you guys a little bit. It's a sales and marketing company. It's basically done for you. We do We create affiliate deals where we run the front end of people's businesses. People can hire us to do website development, funnel creation, offer creation, podcast tours, PR, press, different things like that. We have a lot of different strategic partners that we are with. We have about 7 different ways that we can generate people leads, not just Facebook traffic. The thing is not every business and not every offer is best for paid ads. And there are a lot of different avenues that you can do. So I partnered with my business partner, Alex Guillen, and it's been a ton of fun. And really the whole purpose and the whole mission was to bring integrity to the online space, and especially in the marketing niche, right? There are so many people that overpromise, do 6 figures in a month. Like everybody, that's just kind of the trigger word. And so we came together, we built this company, and we are now taking on clients and promoting it. But what we really do is our ideal client is on an affiliate deal. So we take people in, increase their price, get the offer out there, and start to market and sell. You have all these wonderful coaches and consultants and people in the world, and they're like, man, I really don't like the marketing and sales part. So we handle all of that. And we just basically, so all they're doing is showing up in their genius and serving their clients. And so we do that on affiliate commission. So it's all performance based. So if our clients don't win, we don't win. And we like it like that. And so, on a lot of the deals, there's upfront costs for the website and stuff, but then as all the marketing continues, it's all performance based. It's all percentage based. So we actually walk hand in hand with people, and we consult with them on how to scale their business to the 6 and 7 figure range. No, you cannot do it in a month. A lot of people can't do it in 6 months. To build $1 million company, it could take 10 years, right? But we'll be honest with you about what is possible.
Nice. And that's what everyone wants. They want honesty, right?
Yep.
So Tyson, if somebody wanted to find out more about you and your company, I'm assuming Elevated Empires is the place to go.
Absolutely. And we're working on a ton of different things, and we've got some free gifts on the website, and things like this. You guys can go to the podcast page, and for those of you guys who have found me here, we have something there for you. And it's a lot of fun to do what you love, like you, right? You know this, like to do what you love for a living, to work for yourself, but to genuinely create impact in people's lives. There's no amount of money that will ever be more rewarding than creating real impact in people's lives, creating real change, having somebody out there like, you know what, because I ended up doing business with Tyson, or because I hired Tyson, or because I coached with Tyson, my life will not ever be the same. And that for me it's what I'm here for.
Awesome. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was just talking to one of my VAs, and they said, because I'm working for you, I'm able to get a mortgage on a house for my mom and my dad, and they're not going to be, having to worry anymore about where they're going to be living. We've got them a place. And it was just like, oh, what a nice feeling that is.
Yeah. One of our VAs sent both their younger siblings to college on what we pay them.
Nice.
So
nice.
Super cool. Yeah. That's a great way to go about it if you're in the online space.
It really is. Awesome. Well, Tyson, do you have a final tip, suggestion for our audience before we leave? We've covered an awful lot today.
Yeah. Let me breathe on it for a minute. I feel like with what is going on in COVID, it's almost a message to men out there. It's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be scared, and it's okay to be hurt. That's when you reach out to somebody. It's okay to have the feelings that you have. It's okay to feel like you want to cry sometime. I really want to bring emotional intelligence to the forefront and start teaching this in schools to our young men. And look, the masculine energy out there, it's become very toxic, and it's because of the way that we raise young men. And it breaks my heart. So it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be hurt. those are normal human emotions. If you didn't feel that way, then there would be a problem.
Awesome way to close the show, Tyson. Thank you very much. Thank you for being on it with me. And thanks everybody for joining us. And this is Internet Marketing Unleashed, and we'll see you next time.
See you, buddy. Thank you.